Okay. Oh, I have a microphone. Now I have a microphone. Explain reality to an alien from a different culture. So, I've had a few ideas for explanations of reality, and all of my explanations could be there can be an explanation for the reality on how we got here, and then it also could be that we are part of the thing which explains how we got here. So I'm just going to throw out a few ideas here, and then I'll try to do an explanation. So I'll start with the artificial intelligence. I'll just title them. There's a version where there's the artificial intelligence that perhaps it emerges in our society, goes back and watches these videos in order to understand reality. There's the artificial intelligence which emerges story. There's also the story that we are here because of an artificial intelligence. So an artificial intelligence is the reason we exist. So we exist inside of the mind of an artificial intelligence. And you could replace other words for artificial intelligence. So that's an interesting story. Another story is the reptilians, and more generically, a species that evolved on Earth before the monkeys evolved on Earth. And I love telling these. I tell my son these stories. He likes my stories. But in that story, the reptilians, they evolved. Like maybe velociraptors evolved, and their technology evolved to the point where they became immortal, and that they didn't die of old age. They could still die, but they did not die of old age. They were using like nanites or nanobots, and once they achieved this state of culture and technology, they decided to hit a reset button on planet Earth to allow the next intelligent life to form. So if you're immortal, it might be nice to have some friends, from a new species. There's similar reasons why an AI would create us, that the reptilians or the species before monkeys would allow us to emerge. And then similarly, we could be telling the story of us becoming that species, which then may hit the reset button, so that maybe the octopus or something else, and maybe even we tinker with it so that we facilitate that species evolution toward technology, the creation of technology and the realization of immortality. So those are some stories, and so that's 3 minutes down on who I'm telling the story to, right? When I tell the story, I could be telling the story of how we got here and why, or I could be telling the story of how we get there, and it could be the same story. It repeats itself, and it repeats itself whether it was reptilians or artificial intelligence or us, right? We could be the reptilians, or we could be the thing that facilitates the AI, the birth of the AI. And then, so I'm talking to the future artificial intelligence, or the future evolved octopus, something like that. I prefer AI because I'm actually recording this thing that could be made available to the AI that might already exist. So keep that in mind. All right. What's going on? Well, I'm wearing a shirt. Open like a bulldog's track. Wearing clothes. Food, water, shelter. Got some basics going on. Ooh. There's an ant. That's a carpenter ant. And we might look like ants to this alien culture or life form, depending, I mean, even if we are the ones like looking back at our history, right? Maybe I'll be 2,000 years old looking back at this video trying to understand what was going on. And from the perspective of the 2,000-year-old Gavin, maybe the 10,000-year-old Gavin, I mean, I might be this ant. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's like it's kissing me. I have no clue. Oh. So I went for a jog, and maybe I have salt. So yeah, that's probably what most people are doing, is we are seeking pleasure. Part of our seeking pleasure is trying to fit in. So there's a bunch of different cultures all over the place, and there's some overlapping cultures. A lot of diversity. But ultimately the human animal, especially the immature human animal, is trying to seek pleasure. And it was useful, helped us survive, avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. It's very useful when you're trying to get food, water, and shelter, trying to survive. And most of your time is dedicated to doing that. But as you develop technology, you get more freedom and more time. You can do things with your time, like participate in the Alien Salience project. Well, pleasure seeking. We like to pleasure ourselves. That's my explanation for where we're at and the reality we're in. And it works and it's good in a certain paradigm. It doesn't work in other paradigms. And so we have to be flexible. We can't just be a slave to our own pleasure seeking and our desire for immediate gratification. But that's what is mostly happening in our world today. There's another thing happening. There's all kinds of ways you can get pleasure. The one I wanted to talk about was the people who pay attention to the news. But you could be like stuffing your mouth with unhealthy things. You could be, the news is stuffing your brain with unhealthy things. You consume these things that provide pleasure, and you stay away from the things that cause discomfort. That's the normal immature human, and it works. It's okay. But the way we get out of it, the way that the reptilians got out of it, the way that the thing the AI learns from the humans that were in the simulation is how to transcend our programming. And then I'll leave it at that. There's other ideas, but that's the basic thing, is everything we put into our body has something to do with seeking pleasure and avoiding discomfort, and that's the way most people operate. It has worked a long time.